All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Talent Show. We're so glad that you've taken the time out of your day to join us. Or if you're not able to watch live, you're watching this afterwards because we have a very important topic and timely topic that we want to share with you today about emotional intelligence and how it plays into every day and helps us shape our days, how we respond under pressure, how we connect with people, establish trust, and how we live a better, fuller life. So there's a lot to unpack in this conversation, and I can't think of anybody better to do it with us today than our six-time guest, Hall of Famer, Janelle Rosales. And so we're going to meet her here in a minute, but first we want to hear from you. So please drop us in the chat where you're joining us from. We love to see everyone from around the world. We think this topic is going to resonate with you wherever you may be, wherever you may work. And if you're here from TTEC, we're glad you're joining us here today. And hey, Mo is watching us from the Philippines. So as we continue to talk about today's conversation, please feel free to drop comments in the chat. We'd love to hear from you as well along the way and how you're feeling about the topic. So Janelle leads a global team. She champions wellness initiatives here at TTEC, and her global team is amazing. They help us with all sorts of different kinds of webinars, workshops, things that provide us tools and advice that we can use to get better in our days. So let's welcome Janelle onto today's show. Hi, Janelle.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good because you're here, and that is awesome. And we look forward to this conversation with you that we have every year. And the topics change from year to year, and we're so glad that you've really wanted to champion emotional intelligence here with us today. So thanks for setting aside the time. You've got some fans in the chat. Todd Denning is here. I know he loves anytime you're around and your team. Joining in from Virginia, we've got Jel from the Philippines, Labs also from the Philippines, and we've got Ray as well from the Philippines. So a lot of great TTEC team members joining us here today, and we know they're going to walk away with some great information. So, Janelle, emotional intelligence, pretty big word, pretty big concept. Can you help us ground today's conversation with what is emotional intelligence? And then we'll get into the practical tools and what we can do to use it and flex that muscle in our everyday lives.
Sure, yeah. So it does feel like a very big concept. However, it's very simple. Really what emotional intelligence is it's the communication between your emotions and your rational behavior or actions. So what am I doing with my emotions and how do I respond to those emotions? So that would be emotional intelligence in its simplest terms. But it's really about recognizing the emotions in ourselves and then how we manage those emotions in our behaviors and with other people. I think the best thing about it is that it can be learned. You're not born with emotional intelligence. You certainly learn it. And it's never too late to learn it. And because it's such an important life skill, you often hear emotional intelligence tied to work relationships, but it's really a life skill. And so it's one that can be learned, like I said, and can have a significantly positive impact on how you live your life and how you interact with others.
I think that's great news that we can always learn and grow. And I think especially so many people, if they're tuning in today, they probably have a growth mindset. That's why they're here. They're here to learn, to evolve, to grow. So good news for everyone who's tuning in and listening. We can continue to flex this muscle and develop it. So thank you for sharing that, Janelle. And I love that you broke it down that sure, we talk about it in the workplace, and it's also important in the rest of our lives as well. I just want to say over in the chat, Linda is joining us from the US, and Monique also loves this topic as well. So glad that they're here to join in on this. So let's talk about, like you said, that we can learn it. What are those kind of foundational skills? Where do we begin? How do we add this into our lives?
So, I mean, one of the first things that I learned and would encourage others to do is really taking stock of yourself. What are my general behaviors? What are my natural tendencies when I'm stressed, when I'm happy, when I'm sad? So really kind of slowing down long enough to write down those things that kind of make you tick, because those are the things that are generally going to inhibit or elicit an emotion of some sort. So the more you kind of learn about yourself and how you respond or react in some cases to certain situations, the more in tune you can become with those feelings. And once you learn what those feelings are, you can start to name them. And then as you name them, then you can say, okay, this one is yes, I'm seething, I'm really irate. So I know that my natural tendency is to react, fly off the handle. Maybe for some it might be to just stop and cry or break down. And so, as you learn those feelings, as you learn to name them, then you can sort of determine, how do I regulate this emotion so that I'm not reacting? I'm not flying off the handle. I know myself well enough to say, I need to sleep on this one, even though I may not sleep very well, right? Because it's on my mind. Or maybe I need to go work out because I feel a whole lot different after I exert some energy, and then I'm in a better place to respond accordingly rather than react.
There's so much there that, again, we could have like several shows on this.
Yeah, yeah, on every section, yeah, on every competency, I think we could for sure.
I was just listening to a podcast and they mentioned that the host mentioned that he never really learned to name emotions,
Yeah.
just kind of lumped a bunch of emotions together. So I really like that you just called out, like, name that emotion, and that the emotion could have many different meanings with it. Like, is it mad, or is it disappointed, or what is it within that? So I'm glad you said let's start with like naming those emotions as well. And Todd in the chat says, while we can't control every situation, we can control our response to it. Todd, I think you've also heard some of Janelle's presentations in the past. How we react is our choice, and growth happens when we choose to learn from each moment rather than simply reacting to it. And Monique says that she regulates her emotions by taking a moment to pause, research the situation, and figure out the best way to respond before reacting. I think
Exactly.
these
And if I
two.
can just kind of quickly go back to the feelings there, we're human, right? Our natural inclination is to feel our emotions, but we're not really well versed in naming those emotions. And so we know that we're emotional beings, but how do we build the skills to name those emotions? And so I think a good way to kind of break that down is to understand that all emotions pretty much emanate from five feelings. So what do you generally feel? Happy, sad, angry, afraid, or ashamed? Those are the five feelings. And so if you can identify those, and then from there, identify the intensity of those feelings. So a good example for happy might be, I'm elated, I am passionate, I'm super excited. That's going to be a high intensity emotion or high intensity feeling of happiness. Whereas a low intensity might be, oh, I'm content, I'm glad. Angry, you're seething, you're irate. So that's high intensity, obviously. Maybe you're just a little bit annoyed, a little bit irritated. That would be a lower. So not only understanding that every one of your emotions is going to fall into one of those five categories, but then you also identify the intensity to just say, okay, again, I'm super upset right now. I know that if I react on this emotion in this situation or in the now, it's not going to end well for me or anybody else. Whereas if I again exercise, for example, I'm going to feel a lot differently about this when I come back. And so that's what I mean by understanding those emotions. You don't ever want to avoid the emotions. They're human, they're natural, they're there for a reason. Lean into them for a little bit of time. Try to understand them, and then you manage the emotion from there.
And I think that's great. It seems, and especially in the chat too, that it's can be changing your state. Is it, like you said, getting up, moving around, doing some sort of exercise, sleeping on it, whatever it is to kind of change maybe the state of leaning into the emotion and then figuring out how to respond to that as well. And I think they were kind of didn't even know it, but leading into one of my next questions, which was, Janelle, we are a reactive group of human beings, right? And I think technology has helped us to be even more quick to react. I know you and I in our pre-show were talking about how there used to be this thing called a fax, and you couldn't really react quickly to a fax. And then email came, and then chat, and then text, and all of these different ways that you can immediately respond. So, and I'm just kind of asking for a friend over here. What are some of the ways that we can, like, why do you think we react, and what can we do to slow our response?
Yeah, I mean, we live in an instantaneous world, right? We expect things to work immediately, and even when our computers go down and computers need rest too. Give them a break. And so I think that if something isn't working immediately, we very much are reactive because we expect that instant gratification. We just have that has sort of become our norm. So, but here's the thing: there's no rule. There's nothing that says you need to respond to something immediately. And in fact, that would be the advice that I would give is take a beat, take a moment, take a breath. You do not need to respond. And generally, when we react right away, that's exactly what we're doing. We're reacting. We get an email, for example, or this particular person always seems to ask the same question over and over. We react to that. And then you often find when you go back and you read your response to your initial reaction, you're like, oh gosh, I could have totally handled that differently. And so what I would say is take a breath, take some time, especially for those kind of high stress situations. We know that somebody is probably expecting a response right away. Teams is kind of a really good example of that, right? We might be on red. Somebody might be messaging us via Teams. There's nothing that says that you need to respond right away. You're giving the indication that you're on red or you're on do not disturb. And I think that on the other side, we need to recognize that. Be aware that somebody can't respond right away, or they're busy, or they're sleeping, or they're eating, and they can't hit that text button right away. It may not even be about you. And I think that we as humans have a tendency to kind of take things personally very easily. And the more that we can just put ourselves in their shoes and just say, oh, they might be eating, or they might be resting, or maybe it's their exercise time, or they're in a meeting. That's why their button is red. So just kind of becoming more self-aware of ourselves and our surroundings and recognizing that there are no rules that say that we need to respond right away. Take the time to formulate a thoughtful response based on regulating those emotions before responding.
I think that's great. That really aligns with like your personal values too, or my personal values that you said. If you go back and read your email, sometimes you're like, oh, that's not like really how I would have responded if I was in my more mindful moment there. So yeah, it's a great kind of gut check too of like, how do you want to show up for other people? Mohammed, in the chat also says emotional intelligence starts with listening, understanding different personalities, staying calm under pressure, and treating your team with respect while maintaining accountability. A great leader manages emotions before managing performance, and you won't find many of these types of leaders. And then Mahmoud also shares, I agree 100% as well, that for you can train people and lead them to the messages you have to be tailored and changed according to how emotionally the receiver will receive it. So yeah, a lot of great comments in the chat. Stacy also says, perfect timing for me personally to tune in on this topic, coming in from North Texas. So thank you everyone for responding in the chat. we also have an audience check-in time, which is when emotions run high, how do you reset? I know we had some previous comments on that in the chat, but would love to hear from you. As Janelle and I were talking pre-show, is it that you go and you water your plants? Is it that you maybe listen to your favorite music? What is it that you do to reset? And Janelle, I know when you were just talking about breathing, I found myself naturally breathing more when you said take a breath, and that the importance of that. I just, even for me, and going live, like how do you monitor yourself and regulate while you're kind of in an adrenaline situation? So the importance of the breath. So thank you for sharing that part too. So, okay. I always love your advice. Obviously, our team loves your advice too. What are some more practical tools that you think that we could use that could really help us in our days? Any like visual cues that we need, reminders?
Yeah, so I think if we'll take a moment to kind of talk about the if you're not familiar with emotional intelligence, it's basically broken down into four different quadrants. So you have your self-awareness, which to me is the basis for everything. If you can't be self-aware, you're probably gonna not do well in the other quadrant. So that is my advice, is to start there. Start with self-awareness. So some good tools that I think that are some of my favorite strategies are knowing who and or what pushes your buttons. When you can identify that, you can prepare yourself a little bit better. So for me, one of those buttons is a lack of self-awareness in others. So not to be judgmental in any way, we all have to work on it. I have to catch myself very often at times to remember that self-awareness work that I've done. But for me, when I'm driving and somebody is just so not aware of anybody else around them. They're on their phone, they're driving 20 miles under the speed limit, whatever it might be. Again, that's a lack of self-awareness. That's kind of being in your own world. And so I think knowing what and who pushes your buttons can help you prepare a little bit better. Keep a journal of your emotions. So when you find yourself getting angry, it can help you delve into why. What is making you angry? Is it that you're jealous of something? Is it that you've got some, you know, things you're harboring that you haven't quite worked through yet? Why do you fly off the handle so easily? So keep a journal of your emotions and why you feel the way that you do. Get to know yourself under stress. That's a big one, right? We all know who we are, and we're usually pretty different when we're highly stressed than we're kind of in a good spot. And so the more what you look like under stress, you can start developing some strategies like breathing, keeping that note at your desk on your monitor that says, breathe, just breathe, or walk away, or go water your plants, or go do whatever it is that you need to do. Go feel the sun on your face to kind of calm yourself down a little bit so that we can lower that stress. One of my favorites is observing the ripple effect of your emotions. Um, so my boss often uses this, and she says, when you say things in an emotional state, it's like hammering a nail into a wood fence. So you can take the nail out. So you can say something maybe that you don't mean to say to somebody, or in a way that you don't mean to say it. So that's the nail, right? You can pull out that nail, but guess what? That hole is still there. And so you need to be aware of that ripple effect of when you say and do things that you don't really want to be saying and doing because you did not manage your emotions. You were not self-aware in that moment. And so I think, those are big strategies. I think with self-management, so that's your behavior, right? So you're aware of something. Now, what do you do with this? So Todd gave the example, not the example, but the great advice of you want to learn to respond versus react. And that's where the self-management comes in. So I understand my emotion. Now I need to act on it. So I need to be flexible. I need to direct my behavior now positively. So one of the best things you can do is count to 10. Sleep on it. Don't react. Stop for a minute and do nothing. And I noticed somebody put in the comments, I don't want people to think I'm ignoring them, or I'm worried that I'm ignoring them. Communicate that. Just say, hey, I need to take a minute for myself. It's not you, it's me, however you want to say it, and take that time for yourself. Count to 10, walk away. So on that note, don't be afraid to openly communicate. I'm working on my emotional quotient skills, or I'm working on emotional intelligence. Bear with me. This is part of my practice to walk away. I'm not ignoring you, but just, give me a moment, or give me a moment to work on my skills. I think the more we communicate our actions and what we're doing, the better. We don't communicate enough, right? We try to expect others to interpret our thoughts or our texts or whatever. Just be straight up about it. Communicate exactly what you're doing, and don't be afraid to. I think we can all learn to communicate better. And that goes back to I think Mahmoud's comment about listening. And we'll get to that in just a second, because that is one of the most important skills you can learn. And then the other thing, as far as self-management, is think about how you would want to be treated if the situation were reversed, right? So I have an emotion, I'm going to act on it. Put yourself in the other person's shoes first, and it might change the way that you decide to approach that. And so that again is another really good strategy. When we think of social awareness or reading the room, that's another big one, right? You're learning how to read our the people that we lead or those that we work with, is watch body language. And so use the camera if and when possible. I know not everybody likes to be on the camera, but in that case, kind of learn to read the style that others use, in terms, so that you know when they're off. You know when to ask that questions. Hey, is everything okay? I noticed, you just seem a little down, or whatever it might be. So if you can't learn to read the body language, at least learn to understand others' tendencies, and learn to read through those. Seek the whole picture always. Don't ever lose sight of the big picture. We tend to kind of get honed in on those little things that we think are important, that we might be missing the bigger picture. My dad used to say, don't miss the forest for the trees. I didn't understand what that meant from the age of 10 to 20. Now I totally understand it. And so, again, never losing sight of the big picture, what you're trying to get to. And then, as Mahmoud suggested, practice the art of listening. Don't talk. Stop forming a response while somebody else is talking. Just shut off your mind and use those ears and just listen. You'd be amazed at what you hear when you listen, and you'd be amazed that you don't always have to have a response. You don't always need to be formulating that. And if you're formulating a response, you're not listening. And so stop and just listen from time to time. In fact, in our That's Life program, that's one of the lessons, is to just listen for the day. Don't respond, don't react, don't do anything. Just learn to build those listening skills. And then relationship management. Again, this is where you take that reading the room and understanding other people's feelings and emotions and actions and such, and managing them. So how do we manage those interactions successfully? So one of the most important things, I think, and it goes to listening as well, is being open and curious. We're all different. And that's the beauty. That's what makes humans so amazing. And that makes the world go round, is that we are different. We have different perspectives. So be open and curious to those perspectives. I know that is hard right now to do, just because we strongly and firmly disagree on some things, but being open and curious and trying to at least understand others' perspectives can go a long way. It helps to acknowledge others' feelings. It's not always about your feelings. Take the time to say, I understand how you're feeling. When you care, show it. When you think of somebody, do it. How many times have you thought of somebody in your head and you're like, oh, I should text them, check in, but then you don't? Do it. There's a reason you're thinking of that person, and so take action. You might be the difference between them having a very good day and just a terrible day. And so that taking the time to just make somebody's day, and I'm going to give a plug here for doing those shout outs, those recognitions. So go onto the recognition platform and just say, hey, I really appreciate the fact that Rebecca did this, or she's always a great partner, or whatever it might be. Those shout outs make a difference, and they acknowledge that you care about other people. Another good one is take feedback well. So when people are giving you feedback, if it seems like your team is always intimidated by your emails or in your meetings, or they shut down and get quiet, that's probably a you issue. So that's a self-awareness issue that we need to look at to say, what can I do differently, or what am I doing that is making others uncomfortable? And we can work on it when we're willing to take those self-awareness steps and look at ourselves. One of my favorites is tackle those tough conversations. Confrontation does not always need to be bad. Unfortunately, there's a negative connotation that comes with confrontation. No, confrontation can be good, especially when you offer fix it statements, or when conversations break down. Kind of go back to let's go back to the basics here. One of my absolute favorite quotes is, when we avoid difficult conversations, we trade short-term discomfort for long-term dysfunction.
Mm.
So that's pretty powerful, right? So if you keep pushing it off, if you keep kicking the can down the road, things are going to end up dysfunctional. So don't be afraid to tackle those tough conversations. So yeah, those are all the quadrants, and my favorite, or what I find to be the most effective strategies for helping you build those emotional intelligence skills. And it seems, based on the chat, you guys are already doing a lot of this stuff. So you're probably ahead of most, which is great.
I'm so glad this session is recorded so we can all go back and like Lavinia had said, she was taking you up on the journal. She does journaling to help with that, and Dora takes a deep breath. And so a lot of team members are practicing these things as well. And I think it's important for us to go back and really pause on so many of the things that you just shared: the listening, the communicating, the being vulnerable with other people and saying, hey, I've got some work to do. I'm working on myself. I think that is inspirational for others as well, when we can say, hey, I'm not perfect. I've got things I'm working on over here. So just give me a minute. And then the visual of the hole in the fence. I think I love analogies, and I love those visual cues. So yeah, be careful with the hammer, because it's going to leave a hole with that nail. So thank you so much for sharing that piece too. So let's see. Oh, deep breathing. Linda shares deep breathing and listening as well. So a lot of those. Oh, and I love Monique shared, sometimes she takes a nap to relax herself too. Sleep is just rest your mind a little bit as well. So all such important things. And I don't want to say easy, but if we practice them every day, we create habits out of them, then soon it will be easy to just remember to breathe, remember to not relax, or to remember to relax, to step away. Janelle, you've already given us so many great pieces of advice and tools that we can add to our toolkit. We normally end the show with what's that one last piece of advice that you really want to make sure people walk away from today? It could be about anything that's on your heart or on your mind, or it could be related to emotional intelligence. So you have one last nugget to share with us today?
I do. I've got a few, actually. So if you'll indulge me, please. I think expect success, but not perfection. And that's something that you just said, Rebecca. We're humans. We're never going to be perfect. We're not expected to be perfect. I wouldn't strive for perfection, because it's going to be an effort and futility. That's the beauty with life, is that it's full of twists and turns and journeys and ups and downs. And I think that's what makes life so interesting, right? Is that we're never perfect. We're perfectly imperfect, is what I like to say. And so situations will vary. There will be missteps. You will mess up. But the best thing is that you learn from them, and you continue to evolve, and you continue to grow. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in, is that you can continue to learn and grow. I'm in my 50s, and I'm still learning, still growing, still making mistakes, and I'm okay with that. And I think that models well for others, and my kids especially, and that I always tell them, you focus on what is in your world and life right now. Not the what ifs, not the what was, but what's in front of you now. And remember, you're never going to be perfect. Being patient with yourself and others. So when you start working on your emotional intelligence and you share that with people, they might be surprised, like, well, wow, and you might come across as differently. So if somebody expected a certain reaction out of you based on how you've always been, but you've been really practicing hard with emotional intelligence, they're going to see that, and that's going to be a model to say, yes, people can change. How often you've heard people are always the same. They can't change. Yes, you can if you're willing to do the work, but you have to be patient with yourself. And understand, like I said, that there will be missteps. There will be times where you're like, darn it, I fell back into my old ways there. That's okay. Pick yourself back up. Understand that you just need to be patient. Or be patient with others that might be working on their emotional intelligence skills or growth or journey or whatever it might be. Again, as I said, don't be afraid to openly communicate that you're working on yourself. I think that shows our vulnerabilities. It shows our desire to want to be different. I want to be less reactive. I want to remember to take a breath. If you knew me 10 years ago, I wasn't very emotionally intelligent. I would easily fly off the handle, especially in a lot of family type things. But I knew that wasn't serving me very well. I knew it wasn't serving my relationships well. And I worked very hard, and I continue to work on my self-awareness and really my emotional regulation. And then last but not least, practice, practice, practice. That's the cool thing about learning and growing, is that you have to practice it to be better. You're not all of a sudden a professional soccer player just because you like soccer, or maybe you like cooking. Your goal is not to be a chef, but you practice, right? You have to keep doing it to be better at it. And so I will end with that. Go forth in the world, do good things, be good people, but most importantly, take care of yourself. And part of that is building your emotional intelligence skills.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Janelle. I knew you had more to share, and all of it is so important. And so thank you so much for your time today, for you and your team, all that you do to help our team members around the world connect with their wellness and with their emotional intelligence. And we appreciate you being here with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And for everyone, but wait, there's more. We have got some jobs for you, a couple that we want to highlight here today. You can also head to ttecjobs.com to find out what's available in your neck of the woods. For today, though, we want to highlight our licensed property and casualty insurance agent in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is a great opportunity to come and help different customers. We just need you to bring 6 months of customer service or sales experience, integrity to follow guidelines, and maintain client privacy. There's so much more in this job description, so we'll drop it in the chat so you can check it out. I am here in Arizona, so I, of course, wanted to plug this job. We are also looking for a senior trainer to help with our sales side of the house and helping to create amazing agents that deliver amazing customer experiences. So we're looking for somebody who can come and onboard our different sellers, for people who can help with coaching, providing real-time feedback. Again, there's so much more to this. So if you are in Tempe, we're looking for an on-site sales trainer. If you know of someone, please send the job to them. This is just 2 of the many jobs that we're looking for people from around the world. So just head to ttecjobs.com and come and see what might be available for you. Thank you so much again to our guests today, Janelle, to each of you for your feedback. I learned as much from you as well. So thanks for being vulnerable in the chat and making your comments. We'll see you back again in a couple of weeks. Have a great day, everyone.